Convene, and we are on 3A and B, and I'm going to read
Nope.
D.
Huh?
3D.
We moved down.
D.
3D.
3D.
We modified the agenda, yeah.
This, an ordinance of the city, that's the one you're talking about, 3D?
Yes.
Utilities Commission.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I wrote down B. My ears are a little bit bad. Okay, I will read it then. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Section 2-102, comma, 2-105, comma, and 2-106 in Article 3, Commissions and Boards of Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of the City of Vero Beach relating to the City Commissions and Boards, providing for transition and severability, providing for an effective date required by City Council. And I think my next thing, I didn't have my cheat sheet, is staff comment. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Staff comment? None? Public comment?
This public hearing on the proposal that Councilmember Kramer had proposed, the one question was the 5 members that are to be appointed by the City Council. Members individually, it does currently require they be city residents. Of course,
And the alternates can be, there's no restriction.
There's no restriction, and it provides. Remember, we're making it 7 members now instead of the 5 plus the 1 from Indian River Shores as before.
Am I allowed to make a comment before public hearing? Because it may.
Sure.
You're in charge.
May help. I would like to make it majority city, not 5 city, and I have a driving reason, and I also have an ulterior motive. My driving reason is that I would like to have as my representative Jane Barton, and she lives narrowly outside the city, and she's got lots of expertise in this particular area. She's been on it, I believe, the longest of anyone. She actually runs water and sewer utilities, and we hopefully at some point in time here are not going to have electric utility. And I feel it would be a shame to not have her on the commission. She has been an alternate, but I think she should be a voting member. I think she brings a lot to it. I'm also cognizant of the fact that we have customers and outside the city limits, and while the city owns the utility, I don't see the harm of changing the wording such that we, as long as there's a majority, that we permit up to 3 county people. And it's a personal appeal because I want to put Jane on it. That's quite honestly the case.
Now, I would have a question of Mr. Kramer. How can you justify the makeup of five city residents on this board of 71%, when on the electrical side, the city residents are only 40%, and on water, they're only 60%? What happened to representative government?
Well, it's kind of like you're looking at these big utility companies that are privately owned. The ratepayers don't sit on any of those boards. You're representative of the ownership is what it is. If you want to just make this board a board that does not recommend any business decisions, then fine, put whatever you want on there. But, what you're doing is that you have a business, you're running a business, and you're letting the ratepayers make the decisions on how to run the business. Now, we're all heated about this one issue, but if you step out and make common sense and you apply it towards other issues, you can see that it doesn't work. You don't have a business and you don't let your ratepayers say, we want to make the business decisions. That's just, I'm not going to use the word. It's idiotic. It really is.
And yet that's how most utility authorities are. They're represented by their ratepayers.
I don't have a problem with the utility authority. On the utility authority, all of the ratepayers own the system. In this particular example, all of the ratepayers do not own the system. If you want to go to a utility authority, I'll vote for that. I don't have a problem.
No, I wouldn't have a problem voting for a utility authority either. The other 2 members of City Council, what do you think? I think it's interesting. Interesting topic.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we want to make sure that everyone on there is a ratepayer. So if you're a county appointee, and one of the comments Mr. Stradley made is the Utility Commission had an issue that, well, what if the county appointee has county interests instead of ratepayer interests? Well, then we could amend it to say that the county appointee must be a Vero Beach ratepayer. So then you are getting that representation of the ratepayers into the equation.
What it calls for right now is that the any member has to live within the City of Vero Beach service area.
Okay.
We could say that they have to be a ratepayer, but
Well, then right there, that solves the issue.
So where are you then? I don't know.
I think that as long as it's being represented by the people who are using the system, then it is representative of who's involved. So I think having 5 members be from the city, they're all getting that same bill. They're all utilizing those services. So is it that we think that one interest is going to be represented over the other, or that ratepayers are really going to work together in the city and the county to maintain the best system possible?
It's just that you have an unbalanced ratepayer system. You have part of your ratepayers have the ability to vote for city council members that will be reviewing decisions on that utility, and the majority of your ratepayers do not for the electric utility. So, you're just trying to give those other ratepayers some voice. Obviously, anything this commission does comes to the council anyway. Mm-hmm. It's just trying to give a broader voice for that commission.
Mr. Fletcher, do you want to comment or you want to listen to Mr. Stradley first?
I believe the current composition is appropriate and the current methodology is appropriate. My concern when naming someone to this board is, are they competent? Do they have the background to be sitting on this board? And currently we have some really talented people. I would leave it just the way it is. I don't see any reason for change.
So
Mr. Stradley, public comment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to say Jane Burton is one of the most valuable members of the committee. And the way I run the utility committee or commission is I encourage all of the alternates that are there, whether it's Rock or Jane, to fully participate in the meetings. And it would be a tragedy if she was not on the utility commission going forward. So I strongly would encourage that you modify it so that Mr. Winger can make his appointment. I think it's great. The second point to Ms. Gray's point, I don't think I quite explained myself. It's not that the person wouldn't be a ratepayer. It's that what interest are they representing? I think it was providential that I came on the agenda immediately following the county's proposal. And I tried to make that point clear, and obviously I failed. County staff is going to put forth a person to the county commission. County staff puts forward proposals over and over again that we find totally unacceptable. And I question the wisdom of allowing the county, through their process, to put someone on your utility authority, your utility commission, that would say, we need to have 10 years, and then if we don't like it, it just all goes away and you give up all your rights. You're opening, the way the ordinance is worded, you're opening yourself up to that person representing the interest of the county who wants to take our utility without fair compensation. As I recall, a few years ago, it was virtually no compensation. Well, actually, it was no compensation. And so that was my concern, not whether or not they actually paid a water or an electric bill. It's who they represent. Now, the people that are there today, they represent ratepayers. They don't represent the county. The county commission doesn't appoint them. The city council appoints them. So that I just wanted to make that point clear. And Mr. Kramer, I would hope that we can find that you all could find some compromise that would take care of your concerns. I don't think there's been a business decision that's come before the utility commission, and you may refresh my memory on this, and that would be, I'm open to that, where we didn't look at the best interest of the utility And if we're looking at the best interest of the utility, we're looking at the best interest of the city. We made the utility director, Rob, come back 3 months to his new biosolid system until we were satisfied that it was something that was in the best interest of the utility. And we became satisfied of that, and when we recommended it, and you then moved it forward, and we're going to have a new system that's going to save us money. So I think that, I don't think that's been a problem. I know there's some issues, and I would encourage you all to maybe find a compromise that would solve some of these issues and some of these feelings, and yet maintain, let us continue to serve and to advise the City Council.
So, Ms. Turner, I have a question. So, you would be okay with council appointing members if they were allowed to take anywhere to appoint them from? They didn't have to live in the city like Mr. Winger's proposing his person is? Or you don't want to do this, period?
I would still like to see a more equitable system, that we get a proper balance that's representative of our customers. And I think if you're having individual council members appoint that it's a problem. Because if you want to appoint a city person, and you don't get the right mix, how are you going to deny one council member? No, you've got to appoint your candidate's not good because they don't meet that, they take off the balance of city or county. So I think the system really is unworkable in order to get a balanced board.
Are you taking comments?
We are certainly taking comments. Come forward.
For the record, Ken Daig, address 1846 21st Avenue. I do have a vested interest in our city of Vero Beach. On this matter, I would ask the council to consider, you heard, in the best interest of the utility. Please make sure whoever you put on the board, they have the best interest of our utility. We have, what utilities we have. We have an electric, we have water and sewer. Also, Vice Mayor Kramer brought up some interesting points. Sometimes when you have a bunch of ratepayers, they're sometimes just thinking with their pocketbook and maybe can't really see all the things that they need to see at the table concerning the utility. And also, as a council, the utilities belong to the city. We, the residents, own it. And we expect you, as a council, however you do your boards, you put the best people on those boards suited for those jobs that look out for the city's interests. Now, going forward with the electric, water, and sewer, you're going to have individuals on there, and I think everybody wants to watch their costs. With that being said, you still have to have people on there that are not going to sell the city out. You make some quick decisions, some quick recommendations, because then it gets out into the press, And we've seen that happening here in the past. Again, I ask you as a council, however you decide to structure your boards, to put the best people on there to do the best job for the city residents. And that should be your prime goal. Thanks.
Brock?
J. Rock Tonkel, County, a member of the Utility Commission. I could say a lot and have offered some thoughts at the last Utility Commission meeting, but I think with respect to this question of whether or not the committee as a whole has looked out for the city's interest, I'm only aware of one situation that's come up in the year and a half that I've been involved, where there has not been agreement with our determinations or recommendations by either the city management or the council itself. We're not at odds, and we haven't been. And I think to draw the conclusion or make the accusation that I or the other people there aren't capable of looking out for the city's interest in also considering the views of all ratepayers is a mistake and shouldn't guide you in your deliberations.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Where do we go now?
Well, I just want to make the comment. I mean, why would you guys have any disagreement? You were all appointed by the same person. I mean, does everybody not realize how this all came about? The first meeting that Ms. Turner had when she was mayor, 5 minutes before the meeting, she laid down pieces of paper on all the front of us and then said, I want a new utilities commission, and it voted it through 3-2. Okay, this is the problem when you have an abuse of power. You get 3 people in, and then the other 2, they don't have any representation at all. I was then called to give some type of a presentation before the Utilities Commission. I gave my presentation. They weren't interested in listening to me at all. And they were there to get a little blurb in the newspaper. They got their headline in the newspaper that they didn't want to listen to me and they wanted to keep going with their agenda items. You know, this is something that, you know, if it doesn't go through, maybe we need to keep with the tradition and just have the mayor show up and just dismiss everybody and have a new commission. I mean, where's the sympathy for the last commission? You know, they just unilaterally just got cut off and they're gone. I think if we can come back to the middle, find middle ground here where everybody gets representation, that's the way to go. I am not trying to sit here and skew this thing and pull it the other direction. I'm trying to find middle ground so that we don't have to argue about this in the future.
Yeah, I'd like to find middle ground too, and I'd also like to appoint my own representative, and I haven't changed my mind about that.
I have a problem with it. Make a motion to amend.
I don't think it's broken.
I think that the way that you can find that middle ground is if you're able to appoint with any of the city service area, but each member of council gets to appoint, then you can have someone who's in the county or in the city, and that's at your discretion. We appoint these other committees that make really important decisions, and I just don't see why this one needs to be different, especially when you have changes in elections and you have people who want to hear what other people think, and right now there's really not a basis to do that. So.
Well, is it possible that, I mean, this whole thing about having to have 5 city residents, that if I get to appoint someone, I'm happy?
Well, something that you could consider is right now you have 5. It is calling for city residents because of individual appointment by council members. You could remove that restriction, of course, but then you also have the one that it says the county commission may appoint, and you have one that Indian River Shores may appoint. And I'm not sure, Tammy, has Indian River Shores been actually appointing their member? Or
Yes.
I mean,
they appoint their member and send
there's
us a
nothing
letter
that says
saying
you
who it is.
have to have that. There's nothing that says you have to have the county commission appoint someone. You could just go back to, say, increase the number to 7. You get to appoint 5 individually from wherever, and then the other 2 plus the 2 alternates would be appointed by the council as a whole.
Now, I can buy into that. I don't want to be restricted to the city of Vero Beach to name my candidate. That's my big problem.
Yeah, mine too. I
Sounds
mean,
like
there's Jane, there's Rock, there's Scott.
And I suppose, I mean,
that are all good
but that
candidates. I mean, the reality of it is.
Well, that sounds like middle ground.
But that would take away the county commission or Indian River Shores actually appointing someone. You could say that they make a recommendation to you. I mean, I'm trying to get it where you each get your individual appointment, plus there's still 2 voting members left that you would vote on as a group, plus, of course, your 2 alternates you could appoint anybody to.
Now, we need to stay with the Indian River Shores representative.
Okay.
We really do. They've done a good job.
How strongly do you feel about the county commission one?
I don't feel one way or another about it, but the Indian River Shores, in my 4 years I've been involved, has done a good job.
Then we just have 1 permanent member voted at large,
Sure.
and as well as the 2 alternates. And
Does that make sense to you, Wayne?
No, I don't understand it. But
We can make it work. I mean, what I would like to do is maybe if you want to go that way, let us bring this back for first reading because that's changing it.
significantly,
Significant
yes.
change.
Tell me what it's going to say.
It would say basically you're increasing the number to 7. 5 members would be appointed individually by council members. Their terms of office would coincide with council members' terms of office. The 7th person would be voted at large by the whole council. Their term of office we would probably make the same as alternates, which is typically 4 years. And the alternates would be appointed by the council at large with a term of 4 years.
How about the Indian River Shores?
In Indian River Shores would stay the way it is. They would appoint their own and determine their
Does
term
that
of office.
get where you want to get, Mr. Kramer? I mean, can you live with that or not? I don't know.
Well, it looks like, I'm like any politician. All you got to do is count to three.
No, not necessarily so. I mean, can you live with it? It's a question.
It's. I am learning quite fast that politics is not an issue of fairness; it's an issue of power. So it's whatever you guys want to do.
No, I'm not happy with that.
You'd said that the majority would be Vero Beach residents.
I could live with the majority being the Vero Beach
I
residents.
could live with that too.
That would mean out of the 7, you would still need 4. That would be.
Well, could we say the at-large candidate had to be a Vero Beach resident that we all vote on?
Well, your current ordinance that's in place says that unless you provide otherwise, all of your boards and commissions are supposed to have a majority of city residents. We can stick with just that, or if you want to specifically say the at-large is, however you want to tweak it, that's what we'd put in this ordinance.
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to Mr. Kramer's point of view, the majority, and Mr. Daig's point of view. But I'm also sympathetic to, Rock and Scott's point of view. And I like that, if we can have a majority of city residents, but the others, I like that a lot better. I really do. If you can live with it.
Does there
I can
need
live
to
with
be
it.
someone at large?
It's not power.
We have the 5 members that council's appointing. Then we have someone from Indian River Shores, and then you have 2 alternates.
Well, we were increasing it
He's
to
increasing,
7
yeah.
to make it an odd number. Having the 6 really never made sense, really, anyway.
I haven't changed my mind. I want to appoint somebody, and if it comes to it, then I'll stay right there. But I like this better.
I like to appoint someone also, but I don't want to be restricted to someone from Vero Beach alone.
There would still be we'd still leave in there that they need to reside within the service area.
Yes.
Service area, yes.
I think still administratively you're going to have some issues because you'll have an imbalance of trying to meet a majority of city residents. If you have some people that have more county or will you disenfranchise one council member saying no? You have to appoint somebody from the city so that we keep this I have my concerns about the reality of that kind of a system working.
Your concerns are correct, but I've got at least 3 good candidates, so I'll figure it out.
And actually, it really is most problematic at this point, at a starting point, because remember, the individually appointed members, their term of office would end when your term of office would end. So say there is a change in the council, the new member, if there's not a majority on the commission that's in the city, then yes, they may be stuck having to find somebody in the city. So, however you want to fashion the rules.
Wait a minute,
but if there isn't, but I was going to say that can exist without having a majority with this proposed language.
Yeah, but what happens is if I'm faced with a situation that I want to appoint Jane and I can't because Craig's already used the slot, I'll live through it, and then I'll beg for her to be an alternate, or Rock, or whoever, or Scott, whoever it happens to be. I'll live through it.
Wayne, are you still saying that the majority of
Yes.
has to be from city?
Yes.
Right now, the standard rule of thumb in the code is that yes, majority of a board or a commission is supposed to be a city resident unless you provide otherwise.
Except for the utility board, the way it's structured, balances. It states that you have 3 members from the city and the rest are county, and they're appointed at large.
No, it doesn't say that. No, there is no rule.
It just says majority.
It says majority is supposed to be in the city.
I'm not happy with that.
Well, I think you want to make a motion, or what are you going to do?
I had made a motion and it was on here. Now we've changed it, so somebody else can make the motion.
I'm not sure I can.
I can't
You don't
either.
have to
Wait.
say a majority is. Remember, out of the 7, a majority would be 4. One of the 7 would still be appointed by Indian River Shores, and one would be appointed by the entire council.
I'll make an attempt. 7 representatives, 1 from Indian River Shores. Each of us gets to select one person, and the majority has to end up being from the city. In other words, 4 out of 7.
I can live with that.
That's what you said a minute ago. You said
I
that.
still just
you
don't
would
think
each
it's broken.
appoint one.
It's fine the way it is. I don't see where the problem
No,
is.
I'm not going to change my mind.
On what?
I want to appoint a representative.
I do too.
Well, make the motion.
I just did. I made a
I'll
motion.
second
Okay,
that motion.
repeat the motion.
The motion is there be one representative from Indian Shores.
Right,
Each of us would appoint one representative.
right. And it
The
doesn't have
council
to
would
be.
approve one at-large representative,
Right.
but it has to end up with a majority of 4 from the city. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll call the question then. If there's no more comment, I'm open to comment because it is really a knotty situation. It really is. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
This takes a roll call vote.
Oh, roll call.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Fletcher?
No.
Mrs. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
No.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes.
Passes 3-2. So am I to try to get some applications for
Well,
people to serve?
I'm going to modify the
Bring it
ordinance and bring it back for first reading again.
Because we have to have 2 more readings.
Well, let's clean up the ordinance because we've changed it somewhat and bring it back
Yes,
for first reading so you
completely.
know exactly what you're going to discuss, and then after that you'll set it for a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now are we on 3A and B?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, I believe we're going to do 3A and B together, and I was instructed to read them one after another, so I shall read 3A.
Tammy to read them for you. So you're not doing
No, that's okay. I can still read.
She
They're
did well with
brothers.
those, I know.
An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan future land use map by changing the land use designation of annexed land from Indian River County designation C/1, commercial and industrial, to City of Vero Beach C, commercial, for the property located at 703 to 725 17th Street, including a portion of Lot 5, Block 2 of the plat of the Dr. Richard E. Burlington subdivision, containing 2.5 acres more or less, providing for an effective date requested by the Planning and Development Director. And bear with me, Tim, the second one is an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending the official zoning map by changing the zoning district designation of annexed land from Indian River County designation CG, general commercial, to City of Vero Beach designation C1, highway-oriented commercial, for the property located at 703 to 725 17th Street, including a portion of Lot 5, Block 2 of the plat of Dr. Richard E. Burlington subdivision, containing 2.5 acres more or less, providing for an effective date requested by the Planning and Development Director. Now, is there anyone here that has to disclose any ex parte communications? Okay. Are there any applicants to be sworn in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Are there any exhibits?
Your agenda has all the exhibits, and I've also included 2 revisions to the exhibits that go in the ordinances. We inadvertently had left out the corporate limits, had it outside the corporate limits. That was the only change on it. These 2 draft ordinances, for your consideration, when adopted, will bring the recently annexed property on 17th Street under the City Comprehensive Plan Land Development Regulations. The proposed land use and zoning designations are comparable to those that were already in the county. The primary difference between the 2 is that we don't allow residential under that zoning designation, the C1. And both the Planning and Zoning Board and the staff have recommended approval, unless you have questions of me to open this up for hearing.
I don't believe there's any witnesses.
No, these aren't. This isn't kind of adversarial, so not to worry. If anybody's going to
No
come
applicants.
up, right?
So closing arguments by staff, I believe.
Well, I
just
think
open the
we have to
public
open
hearing.
it up to see if there's anybody who want to
Any
speak.
public comment? Seeing none?
Okay, now you're. And the closing comments are, let's move this forward.
And Tim, this would be
And we'll
moved-
need to-
this we move to another public hearing.
No, this is the final hearing.
This is
We
the
need
final? Okay.
Separate votes on each. So we're,
I'll motion to approve 3A.
I second.
Okay, Tammy calls the roll, I believe.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes.
Motion to approve 3B? Or do we got to go through the same process, don't we?
I'll second it.
Was the title read for the second ordinance?
yes, I
Okay,
read
I'm
both
sorry.
of them.
I missed that one.
I'll second it, Mrs. Bach.
We need to open that public
A
hearing.
public hearing.
Public hearing?
Well, no, we handled them both as one hearing. To make it simple, we have these combos, so because you're dealing with some of the same stuff. So that hearing was open.
Because there was so much public comment.
Yes, it was.
Okay, I believe there is a motion and a second. Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to 3C, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
This is not quasi-judicial.
This
I
is
believe
what-
we've heard this one time previously, have we not?
This is the
This-
final public hearing.
The final. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Section 70.14, Parent C, Chapter 70 subdivisions of the Code of the City of Vero Beach, exempting the re-subdivision of existing platted lots in single-family residential zoning districts from the average minimum width and area requirements of Section 70.14, Parent C, providing for conflict and severability, providing for an effective date requested by the Planning and Development Director. Staff comments.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance for your consideration is intended to correct an oversight we did when we did the comprehensive revisions of subdivision regulations. Basically, it makes it very difficult for people to adjust their property lot lines in existing subdivisions. The intent of the regulations is to protect the neighborhood character, so therefore we have special limitations when you create additional lots. But what happened here is it turned out it makes it very difficult for existing lots to even move it only several feet on that. And that came to my attention when we had an application. So therefore, I felt it was in the best interest to move forward with changes. With mid and air, let's move forward. This will affect more than this one property owner. I just want to point out, even though the ordinance eliminates changes, these provisions on the lot lines, these lots still have to meet the minimum requirements for the subdivision width and area requirements. This ordinance is recommended for approval by both the Planning and Zoning Board and staff. So, unless you have some questions to me, open it up for hearing.
Yes, public hearing? Anyone here? Seeing no one, I'll close public hearing. Council comments?
Move to adopt as presented.
Second.
This is a voice vote, Mrs.
roll
Or
Roll call.
roll call. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. Okay, in order.
Thank you, Mr. Vicario.
No, we've gotten that one, so we're on to resolutions, single hearing resolutions 4A. A resolution authorizing the City of Vero Beach, Florida, entered into a supplemental joint participating agreement with the State of Florida Department of Transportation to rehabilitate taxiway A/E FDOT number 425-749-1-94-01, requested by the Airport Director. Mr.
Yes.
Menger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, Eric Menger, Airport Director, for the record. And as we discussed before, this is a resolution that would allow, if the council approves this, it would allow the mayor to accept the grant for approximately $80,000 additional for the installation of LED lighting on the runway project that is already underway. The money was offered by the state. Staff recommends acceptance.
Okay, no further comments, Blunt? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, council comments, or a motion as you see fit.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. Okay, now we move to 4B. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, requesting that the state of Florida fund the cost of improvements for quiet zones at municipal railroad crossings located along the All-Board Florida projected route, providing for effective date requested by the city attorney. Mr. City Attorney, you have a comment?
Actually requested by your High-Speed Rail Advisory Commission, and in discussion with the mayor, because this is a time-sensitive matter, we went ahead and prepared this resolution asking the state to contribute funding for these matters. The city of West Palm Beach has already done this. We kind of stole a lot of their language and copied what they did and put a little more meat on the bones that was more suited to Vero Beach. And it's your pleasure if you want to proceed with this or not.
Mr. Daig, would you like to comment? I believe you're the chairman of that group.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Ken Daig, 1846 21st Avenue, and that is correct. I am the chairman of the High Speed Rail. Also, one of our commissioners here, Mr. Stradley, is in the audience also. We had a 4-to-1 vote that we would ask the council to move this resolution forward. We are operating on a very tight window of time for these quiet zones. I hope you're getting all the materials that I've been sending to my fellow commissioners and that you're able to read some of that information. The crossings, I think we have, how many crossings, Mr. City Manager?
7.
7.
There's
And
actually
actually, it looks like if we can drop one out, but I won't go into that, we have a lot of monies that we're going to need to help this go through with the quiet zones. So I would ask that you would all support it. It's actually very important to go forward to our state legislators that we have a unanimous vote. It will help us what we need to do in the very near future. And it is a very tight window that we're operating under.
Mr. Stradley, would you like to comment?
Yes, Mayor. One of the things in our discussions that we came up is that we pay a lot of money in gasoline taxes that go to the state transportation fund. So we're not asking for money that we didn't contribute. And this is a big problem that affects virtually the southern half of the state, the whole East Coast from here to Orlando, from Miami to Orlando. There'll be a train running through every 30 minutes from about 7:15 in the morning to 10:45, 11 o'clock at night. Every quarter mile before the first intersection, they have to blow their horn 3 times. They'll be running at 75 to 110 miles an hour through the city. I don't think most of our crossings are even a quarter mile apart, so I imagine what it's going to sound like, and I asked the representative of the railroad to come back with what it's going to sound like. They're going to just get a quarter mile out from our first crossing going south. That would be Aviation, and they're going to lay on the horn until they're out of the city and on into the county. Because I think that if you think from Aviation to 26. I don't think that's a quarter mile. So even if it is at 100 miles an hour, they're going to be going pretty fast. So this is a big issue that the city's facing, and we need to. I think it's right for us to ask for help from the state.
Thank you for your comments. Any further public comment? Any discussion by council or a motion as you see fit?
And just one correction, which Mr. Stradley really pointed out. I think in the resolution it talks about hourly trains. If you do adopt this, I'd suggest we correct that to say twice an hour.
And it's actually more than that because there's 14 freight in addition to the 32.
But it's adding twice an hour passenger trains.
I move for approval with that amendment to it as twice hourly trains.
I'll second it. We need a roll call on
Yes,
this.
sir. Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. That moves us to number 5, first readings by title for ordinance and resolutions that require a future public hearing. And we're going to 5A. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending the official zoning map by changing the zoning designation of C-1M Marina District to P2 Park District for city-owned property bounded by East Indian River Drive on the east, the Indian River Lagoon on the west, State Route 60 in the south, and the northern line of Government Lot 2 on the north, containing 17.35 acres more or less, providing for an effective date requested by the Planning and Development Director. You have the floor, Ms. Tim.
Well, actually, it was requested by you all, but I'll take credit for that. The council directed us to prepare an ordinance for first reading that would change the zoning of the 17.35 acre city-owned property, which includes the Bob Summers Park and surrounding properties. And you can see on the map, it's all the way on the location up from State Route 60 up to actually just a little past the drainage ditch on the end of the government lot there. So it's a large acre. Basically, what the proposed change does is it makes the zoning consistent with the comprehensive plan, which is always designated this as park. And for all intents and purposes, this brings it in, makes it consistent, and basically the uses that all types of recreation uses would be allowed. There is no real change. You could put docks and other boating facilities, a dog park, whatever you want to do that met the P2 would certainly be all right. So this brings it into consistency. It makes it a lot easier for your planning director to explain to people when you have two different classifications what comes into play. The ordinance itself is going to require 2 quasi-judicial public hearings because of how many acres are involved. And unless you have specific questions of me right now, I guess we do before we move forward.
I'm afraid, Mr. Chair, I do. I am reviewing the code here. Under the current marina zone, it does include recreation and park areas.
Right.
So there was nothing in the current zoning that would preclude a dog park from that area.
No, that was never a problem because when you have a future land use designation, it supersedes anything below that. And where you have the uses that are in both, then those are the ones that go forward. Therefore, recreation, which is under a park thing, would be all right. But a commercial, like the office building, the Waddell that you talked about earlier, that would not be a legal use normally in that kind of situation. Yes.
When you say commercial, that could you have kayak rentals?
You could have
chairs,
incidental
you could have
concessions to the thing, but you're still bound by the various charter amendments and there are certain provisions in various elements of the code that says about leasing out property and what type of uses it could be. There's more to it than that if you look in the code for this. Right.
which I just happen to have with me.
Right. You
Okay.
You have more yellow sheets on it.
Yeah. But I mean, basically, all the
good
uses that have been in that area have all met that park type thing, and we've allowed clubs, not for profit, in that. So it's really no change.
And, and
it's
the
no
River
real
House
change and everything. It
um,
just makes it very clear for everybody and about what can be done in the park and clears up those kind of things. And I think that answers
But
that.
they could put mooring buoys in that area.
They certainly could do
sometime,
that.
Because
Yes.
since that's one of the few deep water areas.
If
I just to
there's-
say sorry. I just got to try to do our due diligence and make sure we're
Right. I mean,
Not excluding.
the only thing you couldn't have a commercial marina there that was set up by a for-profit agency, like as you do down in Royal Palm Point, where you have a marina business going on. You couldn't do that there, but you could expand the marina for buoying, down there, docks and all that. Which you have now, you have a boat ramp, so they're all recreational uses. You're just limited on that.
Thank you.
So, all right.
Okay, public hearing. Mr.
Well-
Digg, do you have anything you want to say, or is there anyone?
Well, it's first reading, but that's fine. We can.
Council comments. Are there any further council comments?
Motion for approval.
now move it to public hearing.
I
There
did.
are actually
first
two
reading.
public hearings for this one, February 4th and February 18th.
So we need a motion to move it forward to a public hearing, which Mr. Kramer has already made, I believe.
I'll second.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. We move on to city clerk's matters.
Thank you, Council.
I have nothing, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we move on to city.
Oh, wait. I was wondering where we were with setting up the interviews for our different
Actually,
boards.
I just received 2 more applications today. So I know that Mr. Kramer is going to be out of town for a few days. Once he gets back, we will set up an interview process. I am going to be working on that, and I'll get a hold of each one of you to see what it's a good date.
Great. Thank you.
City managers matters.
I just have a couple items. The airport director is coming forward, but this Ocolina Bank lease that we are recommending here is sort of a little out of the box where the money is being paid up front. Just to put it in reference, this is the old Felix restaurant, which has been sort of a pain to the city for many, many years. I think locating a bank there, getting our rent up front for the lease is something that we would highly recommend, especially since they're doing it on an appraised value that really projects cash, the value of dollar going forward. But Eric can give some details. We did have one minor modification to that, about 200 square feet. Additional square footage has got to be put into the lease. And so, and that was because of the survey, we just made a minor mistake, and now we're getting that corrected.
That's correct, and that won't adjust the rental at all. That was just an error on the sketch that we used for attachment A, so it's been corrected. And I don't know, if one picture is worth 1,000 words, but I did want to show you at least what the concept was for this corner. As Jim said, this would replace the old restaurant that's been there for many years. I think you all remember well, not all of us remember, but Musicana was there years and years ago, and it's a 60s era building. We found in going through the due diligence on this that there is asbestos in the building and some lead in the paint, all of which is raising the cost of demolition and redevelopment of the effort, which is why we determined that the best thing to do is demolition. Staff has determined that, and we've already gone ahead with Jim's direction to proceed with the demolition on the site. So whether or not this lease was approved, we would have a clean site within a couple of months from now, assuming we can find a good contractor and meets the city council's approval, and that contract will come before council's approval as well. Assuming that all goes through, we would like to recommend that this long-term lease is approved with Ocolina Bank. It's more or less a standard lease, and I say more or less because there's a couple of high points I'll just point out. One is that typically you've seen 30-year leases before the city council, and that's always been the maximum that we've recommended. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we will do, typically a developer will come in and develop the airport property with a steel structure or something that lifespan may not be many more than 30 years anyway. So it works out. They can amortize their investment over that time. In this case, the bank has requested a 40-year lease, and they will be constructing a concrete constructed office building, 2 bank standards that would meet the requirements of the site. It would have to, of course, meet all the city site plan requirements going forward. You can see that they're, in the concept anyway, they're proposing a Key West style facility that would meet all the current hurricane codes and have landscaping, upgraded the parking area. And that corner that we're looking at is a key location. It's Airport Drive and Aviation Boulevard. So one of the intangibles of approval and moving forward with this lease is that we would have what we think would encourage additional development in the core area of the airport property. When someone sees us going up and the construction happening, they'll say, oh, wow, that looks interesting. Is this the airport? And maybe we'll get some contact and we'll get some of the vacant properties leased out at the airport and thereby increase our cash flow and our revenue stream. One of the potential negatives of this is that there is no cash flow after the lease is executed and all the government approvals are made. We'll get a one-time cash payment for the full 30-year term, and then the cash flow, if you will, goes down to zero on that property. However, that's almost like saying if you have a job and you're making $30,000 a year and you win the lottery for $1 million, and you quit your job, your cash flow goes down to zero, but you have the $1 million. In this case, we have the asset. We have the money in hand, the burden in hand that we'll be able to invest through the city's finance director and the investment benefit will then go to the airport. So there may not be the cash flow on the land itself, but there would be the investment potential. There's also the potential of using that money for investment in a hangar or something at the airport, which would also then be a revenue-producing item.
One idea about it, what about putting the money in some sort of reserve and taking it out over the years along with the earnings? In other words, take out whatever it is a year.
That's also possible. We haven't looked into it to see what would be the best investment. Of course, that would be in discussion with the city manager and the finance director. But we feel like in an occasional situation like this, the staff feels this would be a good idea to proceed simply because of the location and the type of construction we're looking at. This isn't something we would necessarily recommend to council for every long-term lease that comes before the airport. But on a case-by-case basis, we do think it's a good idea.
When this one comes back, presuming the council is agreeable to it, it should come back with some plan of where the corpus goes, and how that's going to be handled. In other words, where does the money go? Whether it's a hangar or whether it's put in a fund and taken out yearly or whatever. I'd like to know what happens.
Mr. Mayor, this is your final vote on this. You're approving a lease. And so we can bring back a financial plan or options for the council to review.
I have no problem with that.
Okay. Second thing is, as Eric says, this is a 40-year, it's actually a 30-year renewable for 10 following that, and that renewable is a new price evaluation, new assessment of the property.
That's correct.
So it breaks it up into the operation, and the building does revert to the city at the end of the term of the leases.
Right. And the land value is reappraised at the 30-year point, so that we will see an adjustment on the land rent only at the 30-year point based on the appraisal at the time.
Right.
Well, I would make it a motion to approve it, subject to you all bringing back a plan for the capital, if that's appropriate.
If you don't mind, if we need to expedite this because it's going to be an FAA.
No, I mean, in other words,
approve this, but we'll bring back the plan.
Maybe during the budget hearings, we could bring back something at that point.
Yes, that's fine.
Just with some commitment. I think that's all he was looking for, Eric, at
That's
some
all
time.
I'm looking for.
I'll second that motion.
Just under discussion real quick, I know sometimes that when somebody pays a large lump sum for a lease, it pretty much obligates the person that's providing the lease to provide services under that lease for the length of that what was paid up front. Does this subject us to any liability? I mean, if they've prepaid this for how many years? 30?
30 years.
They're prepaying for 30 years, and if 10 years into this thing,
We keep the money, and they terminate. You're talking if they went out.
well, suppose we find some kind of contaminants on the land, and when we can't readjust, they've already prepaid.
That's correct.
We did a phase one analysis, environmental assessment of the property.
That's just an example. Usually, the problem is sometimes when you prepay an expense or something like that, you become obligated from that for the whole term, and you can't change.
My only concern is how does this not involve sales tax? I don't. Is sales tax addressed?
That
the
is
entire
payable
term?
by the tenant, and that should be included in the final payment. Whether or not this is just the rent we're showing here, though, the $312,000. That's just the
Right.
rent.
Well, and I take it there would be sales tax on the rental that we'd have, Cindy. It's commercial.
That's a very good point, isn't it? Like a $21,000 point.
Well, suppose somebody raises the sales tax somewhere down
I don't
the
have
line.
the entire
Who
lease.
comes up with
Well,
that?
I think
Let's look at the lease.
Let me see if it's addressed.
I mean,
I'm sorry. All I was looking at was the changes.
I mean, if it's, I don't want to make an issue that's going to cause a problem. Just whenever we do things like that, we always get a warning like that we're obligated once we take the money.
Jim, one other point for discussion. I believe, well, I don't know this is so at all, but I believe the goal line is, to some degree, not moving along the railroad. Is that correct or incorrect? Not that it makes any difference, but
we were told that they now project the goal line to be finished in the middle of 2015.
Where we agreed to.
Yes, where we agreed to. But let's go back to Mr. Kramer's question. The answer is the property is still ours. We're still the landlord, so we are the responsible agent, no matter what happens there, because it is ours. Now, they are indemnifying us against any incident that they would have, but if something 15 years down the road was discovered underneath and it was the responsibility of the city, i.e. pollution,
Do it
using
anyway.
that as an example, we would be the responsible party, but we would be under any lease.
We'd have to
No matter what
remedy
the
it,
time
no
period.
matter whether we took the money up front or we're taking it
That is correct.
each month.
All right, can I call the question then, or are we,
Please.
and what kind of a vote do we require in this, Tammy? Just
a normal.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Update fiscal year 13-14 electric utility rate sufficiency. Good evening, Cindy. It's been a long evening, for me anyway.
And there's a lot of information in that package for those of you who like that sort of thing. And I will give you the Reader's Digest version and then answer any questions that you might have. The bottom line of the recommendation that we're making, if you recall, back in October 2013, we increased our fuel portion of the rate for two reasons. One, our 13-14 revenue and expense projections, and also a projected deficit for the end of 12-13 of about $925,000. So our rate increase was designed to replenish that deficit and also to make sure that we covered our 13-14 expenses projection with appropriate revenues. We also made the commitment to look at it again after a quarter. And so at the end of the first quarter, both of those things have improved. Our 12-13 deficit with all the year-end audit adjustments looks like it's only going to be about $625,000. And then with the first 2 months of actuals in October and November, plus some real preliminary December information, our revenues are higher, but our purchase power costs are trucking right along at the original forecast, and that's improved our bottom line for 13-14 by about $845,000. What we're recommending at this time is that we make a rate adjustment backwards from $76.50 to $75 per megawatt hour for our fuel cost, and that, again, we continue to monitor this and we look at where we stand again after the second quarter. I will tell you that, and I know some of you were there, the Finance Commission, because you asked us to take this to them, had a very extensive discussion of the data in the package, of some of the parameters that we consider with our rate setting, including appropriate levels of reserves, et cetera, and they did vote unanimously to endorse this recommended rate decrease. And with that, I can happily answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Mayor, if I might. First, I wanted to thank you for your analysis, and I did, watch all the review from the Finance Commission. I think they covered the topic quite thoroughly. I guess I have more of a philosophical question for the council. I mean, I think it's great for us to review it on a quarterly basis, but this adjustment, it's like a 1.1% change in the rate. Do we as council on a policy basis want every 3 months to be doing 1% tweaks? I mean, granted, I think any reductions assign a goodwill on, for our customers, but I don't know. Should we set, some kind of a meaningful threshold on it, adjustments?
I think if you do it quarterly is a great idea because it goes both ways. I mean, this way, if you're out of the money, you don't go too far out of the money. Closer increments means that you're closer in tolerance instead of waiting till the last minute and you have to make really drastic changes.
That's true.
And at one point we did change them to quarterly. Then we went a year or so where we just made annual adjustments. And certainly I think what I'm recommending is let's look at it again after the second quarter. If there hasn't been, because between the 12-13 improvement and the 13-14 improvement, there was about $1 million swing, $1 million plus. If we look at it after the second quarter and that change has been minimal, then I don't know that we're necessarily recommending that we would change rates every quarter, but we just keep monitoring on that basis. And see, again, part of the discussion we had with the Finance Commission, when you're talking about $900,000 or $1 million, you're talking about something in the neighborhood of 1% of the total revenue on the year in a utility that's highly weather dependent and for which most of the costs are completely out of our control. And so certainly we feel like that the number we're targeting right now is a good margin, not too extreme, but also not pulling it back to where we're trying to make adjustments within that $50,000 mark, which isn't realistic.
In my analysis of the revenues over the years, I've seen we've taken a 17% hit or reduction in our revenues, and this obviously is part of conservation, and people being more careful with their electrical consumption as a reflection of the rates itself. But I mean, making up for that reduction in consumption, we've been successful in reducing our operating expenses by 14%, but as you said, we're really getting squeezed when you've got $60 million of that, or 60% of the cost that we can't control at all.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that helped a little was we were, as you know, really optimistic, I think, about our purchase power forecast for 12-13, which led us with a little bit of a deficit at year end. And on purpose, what we did when we set our 13-14 projection was be a little more conservative and go with the higher end of the OUC projection. And what we're seeing is that even with better revenue, our purchase power costs are coming in about on the original estimate, and you can see that in some of the graphs and comparisons in here. So I think that helped as well.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Stradley looks like he would like to comment. Cindy?
I have a question for Cindy before she leaves. And I heard you in the presentation to the Finance Commission, but this will also, even with this rollback, will still have a good amount of days of unrestricted cash on hand?
Right now, we're right around 76 days at the close of fiscal 12-13. We like it around 90, just as a target, and we talked at length at the Finance Commission about the reasons for that. I think that this will put back that 800,000 or so that we came up short, and that plus a couple of other things. I think our cash position should be pretty good by the end of the year, and back up in the neighborhood of that 90 days where we'd like for it to be.
Thank you.
Mr. Stradley? Cindy, don't go away. The questions are probably for you, not for anyone else.
Well, I wanted to just say that we have been, Cindy has been coming quarterly to the Utility Commission with these rate studies, and the last one where we recommended unanimously to increase to recommend to the City Council that you increase the rates was to restore the fund balance to a sufficient working capital amount. The time before that, the staff came to us and they said, it looks like we might go that way because power has been coming in higher than we projected. So, and one of the things that I've heard some discussion amongst some council members is power may be going down, but if it's cost is going down, but it's still above what we projected, then that is what gave us the deficit. So I unfortunately you didn't send this one to the Utility Commission, so I don't really know the details, and I would hope that you'll send them in the future to both the Utility and the Finance Commission.
That's a good comment, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was a good opportunity for me to make that comment. But I also want to just point out, and Mr. Degg made a reference that in the earlier discussion, and I'm not going back to, I realize that's done, but I want to address his discussion, or his comment. The makeup of the Utility Commission it is now voted in the best interest of the utility to raise the rates on everybody. We did not vote our pocketbook. We voted in the best interest of the utility, as we saw that we needed some additional cash reserves, which would, for bonding reason and for all the good and valid reasons that staff brought forward. So we did vote unanimously that recommend that you all would raise the rate. So we don't just vote our pocketbook and try to, and I will tell you that was a hard vote for me to take, to raise the rates, but it was in the best interest of the utility and in the best interest of the city. Thank you.
Well, I'd make a motion, if it's appropriate, to accept the staff's recommendation. Oh, I'm sorry, Ken.
It's okay.
Getting tired.
Since my name was brought up for the record, Ken Degg, 1846 21st Avenue, I said sometimes was not making. I don't want it to sound like, and I hope Mr. Stradley understands, it wasn't for everybody. I said sometimes that could happen, and back to what business at hand here, and thank you, all of you, in advance for doing this cost reduction. We out there in rate-paying land really appreciate it. Any cost reductions that you all can do in the future, we appreciate it, and thanks for looking at it every so many months. So thank you for a unanimous vote on reducing our costs.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Mayor, you all don't have to vote on it unless you wish to. The only thing is we bring it to your all's attention. If there's any objection, then obviously we would.
I'd rather vote on it.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to vote on the rate decreases, and we'll let you do the increases.
Okay.
I understand the rules better now. Under the charter that you are correct. I'd rather vote on it so we go on record. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, 5-0.
And just a further question with one of Mr. Stradley's comments, which place would you like for us to take the rate adjustments and the quarterly reviews, or would you like for us to take them to both? Because we certainly have that council direction. It's been finance, it's been utility. Which do you have a preference, or would you like both to see them?
I certainly would like to see both commissions. Would be my vote, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have no problem with that at all.
Thank you.
Historically, it's what we've been doing, at least for the last couple of years.
Okay, Jim, one question of you, and I think I know the answer, but as far as our sale of our electric, where we are is it is not going to the FMPA board because there hasn't been a response from Florida Power and Light to FMPA's offer of December 6th. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes, sir. It's not on their agenda at this time. Obviously could be brought up either by their executive director or the attorney. There are conversations, is my understanding, going on.
Well, I can't say how disappointed I am, but I don't know what else to say. Anyone else have questions of the city manager or comments?
Just puts us further and further down the line.
One other issue that will be coming back to you are the two issues on the dogs. As you know, we went to the Recreation Commission, and we have the least leash dogs, and we are picking out some of the parks because what they are recommending where it's practical, and we're going around and talking to folks at the various parks and getting information on that. And the second, obviously, is the dog park and that activity. So we're moving forward in both of those areas.
All right, city attorney matter.
Nothing else unless you have a question on anything.
Okay, we've seen no, are there any questions of? Okay, city council members, there is neither no old business or new business as far as individual council member matters. The only thing I would like to flag is Vero Beach named one of USA's today's list of best Florida beaches, January 20th. And I think that's really great. It's when I say it, I want to say it correctly. It's USA Today, was it not? Or was it? Yes, it was. And I think that's really great. I mean, we are a beach town. Mr. Kramer.
Well, I'll try to make it short. I had a good meeting with Main Street Vero Beach. They're getting ready to gear up for a lot of their events coming up and a few changes to their office space. I want to say a real good thank you to Penny Chandler for hosting that event and letting us use the meeting space that they had. Also attended the Enterprise Zone development meeting. It turned out to be a very good conversations on what's going on in the area. Mainly, I also want to mention the Bark in the Park. I don't know if too many people got a chance to get out there and go to that. I was absolutely amazed at the number of people that had dogs, and they were with that amount of dogs. I was really amazed. It was a very clean event, and I've never seen so many dogs in one place that actually got along with each other. I would have never guessed that that would have happened, but. Make no mistake about it. This is basically a dog-friendly city, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, we recently received the audited financial statement from the FMPA, and I believe all the council members received a copy of that. And as I was going through that data, a couple of things I found interesting. Vero Beach has been a member of FMPA for 30 years, since 1983. The total debt, project debt, on the St. Lucie, Stanton, and Stanton 2, those are the three projects that we are members of, have grown from $516 million to $687 million. In fact, after 30 years of ownership, the FMPA owes more money on the St. Lucie project than was originally financed in 1983. Bottom line is, we have been paying for 30 years for these projects, yet they are all underwater. We owe more is owed on those projects than they're worth. For the Stanton and Stanton 2 projects, even if they're not operating, even if we're not getting our power from those 2 coal facilities, we are charged over $700,000 a month, equivalent of $8.5 million annually. Just some interesting facts on FMPA and the way they do their business. Like to remind everybody on Friday, January the 24th, there is Art by the Sea being held in the museum. On the Saturday the 25th, please come out and join us all at the Freshman Learning Center. Council members and other community leaders will be flipping pancakes for the Pilot Club. And I'd also like to encourage you on Thursday, January 30th, at the Emerson Center, Orca will have astronaut Joe Acaba, who had been on the space station and got a ride home on a Russian shuttle, and he will be speaking. Tickets are available at the Emerson Center and at the door. Thank you.
Okay, I attended the Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities last week, and some interesting things came out of there. They're willing to write, the regional council wants to write a letter in support of our vacation legislation. Also, for the 2014 legislative action agenda for the Florida League of Cities, they're also in support of repealing we're giving back to cities the control over vacation rentals. And I'm going to invite Rob Bolton to give a presentation to the Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities about our septic tank legislation. So maybe other cities want to jump on board and help us get that hurdle of getting that state health department sanitation through. And other than that, Downtown Friday is Friday the 31st, the last one. It should be a good one. It's the band from Miami that played at the Hibiscus Festival.
I believe it's true. I believe it's true that our representative in the House has not yet picked up our request, Mr. Bolton's request to couple the septic and the sewer. I believe it's been picked up by a neighbor representative, but not ours.
We have talked to a couple representatives, but there is one that has been talking to Rob to get a more detail in an adjoining county because of the impacts there. But we have not seen any legislation. As you noticed, I sent you an email, copied you with an email that we are still following up administratively to see if there's a way of making it work. But we have not seen a piece of legislation at this point.
Excuse me, Mr. Fletcher, go ahead.
In the interest, I will pass.
All right, seeing no further business, the meeting is adjourned. 9:02.